It's so quiet, so lonely. 6 feet by 6 feet is my safe space. Pointing fingers, politicians telling us they'd rather keep the economy intact than keep us alive. They'd rather kill us, they'd rather kill you and me to save a buck. Living can kinda suck. You're born, you start school at 6 years of age, then you go to school till you're 18, then you have a choice, more school or work for minimum wage and live in your parents' basement. We scream and bleed our helplessness away. Stuck in my room all day, not knowing what to say. I can't leave, it's not safe, not even to my favorite cafe. All I have is food and bed, gonna be a lazy Betty.
Hi, this is Dave Douglas, and this is the Greenleaf Music Podcast, A Noise from the Deep. That's the music of Shyu, who I will be talking to on this episode. Amazing composer, musician, speaks 10 languages, has done everything and been everywhere, and just an incredibly inspiring person. So I hope you enjoy this episode. As always, you can write directly to us at podcast@greenleafmusic.com, and I encourage you to subscribe. There's an extra attached to this episode where we talk about Indonesian music and film, and Jen shared some incredible clips of music. There's also M3, Mutual Mentorship for Musicians Festival, happening starting June 16th in New York. Their website is mutualmentorshipformusicians.org, and you can find out all the details there. Lots and lots of great artists, and it's a great, inspiring organization that Jen co-directs with Sara Serpa, who's previously been on this podcast. So I'm really happy to talk to Jen, and please enjoy this conversation.
The sun rises and sets along with all my unsolved regrets. Cooped up in this cement cage fills me with deep-seated rage. I miss natural sunlight and going outside at midnight. I miss seeing all my friends. Wonder will these friendships find their end? The people I can't see no more, or all the things I love and adore. Living in the past is living in the future. This is all I've never asked, all that's been taken from me. Can I live a little, breathe a little, give the world some love in this world of ever-changing? What does living mean? Living is doing anything you want and making your life another life the best they can possibly be. Our days are limited, nature has taught us, so make the most of what you have. Don't look back, don't let anyone live your life for you. What a terrifying thing, dusk from dawn and finally back. When will it be done? And I go back to the world I know, break time to begin again. Living's a gift, it's something we are given. What does living mean? We took everything for granted.
Shyu, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy to see you.
Thank you so much, Dave. I'm honored.
Well, we're still in this Zoom era, so we weren't able to meet in person, but it sounds great, and you're in Queens, so we're at least we're in the same state.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, thank you for making the time. There's so much to talk about. your work is so broad and virtuosic and emotionally powerful. And we were just listening to Living's a Gift from your most recent album. And I guess I usually start by asking people about their early musical experiences and sort of, in the same way that we sort of find the spirit of our lives. I find that musicians often have interesting stories, but I wanted to, just because of this moment, and there's so much mourning happening, the subtitle of your album, Zero Grasses, is Ritual for the Losses. And it seems to be very much an album of mourning and lamentation. Is that something that you brought for this particular moment?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been dealing with grief artistically for a while, actually. My last project, Song of Silver Geese, was also an homage to my dear friend who was a Javanese dalang, puppeteer of the beautiful art form called wayang kulit, which is, the beautiful shadow puppetry of Java. And in that case, it was kind of reenacting or kind of honoring his passing. He had it was a fatal car crash that caused his passing, and his wife as well, and his baby son of 10 months. And this was just after I had come back from my time in Indonesia, which I was there for almost 2 years. And, he was only 29 or something, very young, and kind of was a rising star in as a dalang. He was like one of the young, kind of keeping the tradition alive, but also beginning to collaborate with artists around the world. And so his name was Sri Joko Raharjo. Cilik, his little nickname is Cilik, which means small in Javanese. And, so when that happened, I kind of, it affected me so much that I it's like this Song of Silver Geese came out of that event. And similarly, Zero Grasses, it actually began as another piece that I had kind of mapped out that was going to be heavily based on my music research in Japan, which was going to happen in 2019. And I had set out on that trip. I gotten a beautiful fellowship from the U.S.-Japan Friendship Commission, which is a beautiful name for a foundation, for an organization. Wow. But so my intention was to kind of do the research for that, for this work, learn, continue my studies of Japanese biwa, which is the 4-string lute, and continue learning Japanese, and kind of what I have usually done, immerse myself in a culture and learn the language and just kind of absorb all the life experiences that come from living in those communities. So, and then about a month and a half into that fellowship, I got this email from the sheriff of my parents' county, and in Houston, like outside of Houston, Texas. So, and I remember, I'll never forget. I'll always remember being in a classroom alone. I was having a private lesson with a Japanese teacher. And I had a number of teachers because I was doing all these private lessons, like 4 to 6 hours a day, which is kind of how I prefer to learn a different language, is that intensity and privately, because that's how you progress fast. I kind of learned that from my time in Indonesia. So, and Japanese is my 10th language. So I was working on that. And so in the middle of this lesson, we always take a break. It was a lunch break. And I just checked my email like normal, and then this email from this sheriff, that the subject was all in caps and in ref. It was like in ref, REF, to your father, Tsupin Shyu, like his whole name written out. And then this email, which, I sing in that on the album. It's like, I'm sorry to inform you that your father, Tsupin Shyu, has passed away, and your mother asked me to, as a courtesy, to send this email because she did not.
The only way for them to reach you.
I mean, and she couldn't, I guess Mom, she did have my number, but I guess she, being a Japan number, she just, I guess automatically, I'm going to just ask them to send an email. Here's her email. She was in total shock, and she definitely for a year was kind of in shock. So that email came.
That was the genesis of this. The mourning. His losses.
And it was such a shock that, that the rest of the day, actually, when I told my teachers, they couldn't believe it.
That's a heck of a message.
They thought it was a joke. I thought, is this spam? So I called my mom right away via Facebook Messenger. And luckily she picked up. She had a new iPad that we had gotten her, and she was kind of in a daze, kind of like, Mom, is this true? And she's like, yeah, it's true, but don't worry. Dr. Ta, she had family friends. They both had family friends who were there with her, luckily. Like, I guess she called them and they were just with her. It was 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. already by that time. And they told me, Jen, don't rush home. Like, it's just, there's no point in rushing home. Like, it's past. We're going to take care of your mom. We're going to take care of everything. But then the next day, of course, I just rushed home. I just left everything in Japan, all my instruments, like all my clothes.
It's hard to keep laptop. It's hard to keep going with 6 hours of lessons in your 10th language when you just got news like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, right away they said, go home, Jen, take care of what you need to take care of. And strangely, I had a biwa lesson later that day. And I decided not to cancel. I decided not to even tell my teacher what had happened. And I just went, it's an hour south, or it was an hour away from Tokyo in Yokohama. And when I showed up to her door, I told her, and she said, oh, what happened? And I told her, well, he fell asleep. He took a nap and then just never woke up. He must have had a heart attack or, and she said, oh, well, that's how I want to go. She said, oh, and he, because he just didn't have, it looked like he didn't suffer any pain. So I really needed that biwa lesson. I needed to be with someone, just to be with someone, because otherwise I'd be completely wrecked, in the middle of Tokyo.
So this led to you coming back and going deeper into this music, and as I learned from the liner notes, discovering your childhood diaries and finding out all these amazing things, and
kind of rediscovering who, like, what brought me to who I am today, and then just Mom kind of handing me the diaries out of the closet of our, they shared a walk-in closet with his stuff over there and my mom's clothes over there. And that's when she handed them to me, and I hadn't, it's been decades since I had seen those books. And so I took them with me to a residency later that year. And so basically after Dad passed, I just canceled the fellowship. They were very generous and said, anytime, Jen, you want to continue, you are free to. And so I still have 3 months left in Japan whenever the pandemic allows me to more easily do that research. But so that was in April. And then come August, we had already, I just lived with mom for the whole time. And we moved her to a senior living facility, like a nursing facility, independent living. And once she was settled, she said, Jen, you have to continue your life. I'm okay here. Just,
Wow.
And I had this beautiful residency at Civitella in Italy. Have you been there, Dave?
I have never been, but I know a lot
It's
of people that
amazing.
have gone.
Yeah. And so I was very lucky to have this lined up, and kind of went there in a shambles, and I was supposed to be composing, this work. And I really didn't know, the direction was supposed to be, about climate change and about the disconnect between humanity and technology, but it ended up being mostly about my dad, and mostly about those diary entries becoming the lyrics, and me kind of setting them to music. And
life has a way of doing that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It sort of takes over.
It kind of allowed me to rediscover my early experiences with racism, with sexism, and then kind of how that aligned with my current search of, along this fertility journey, thinking about legacy and, what I will pass down, after reflecting what my dad passed down to me. And so, it ended up being kind of too big for me to handle. And it was supposed to be released in 2020. Yeah, but of course the pandemic happened, and it is happening. And I ended up like April 2021 then releasing it. And
well, it's so powerful and sounds totally fresh, and your band is amazing.
They are. Yes, they are.
And I do want to come back to some of those things about childhood and about coming up and learning and passing on. But before we go too long, I really want to talk about this festival that's happening.
Yes.
And, a lot of people will hear this podcast after it's already happened, but I have you here, and this thing is coming up that is really amazing. It's Mutual Mentorship for Musicians, organizing a 5-night live in-person festival in New York. So I guess, first of all, and you're the co-director of the organization with Sara Serpa.
Yep. They're co-founders, co-directors. And I guess our conversations began in March of 2020.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. We had talked about mentorship before. I mean, I've been friends with Sara since, shortly, I think at least 2004, 2005, I feel like is when we first met. And I moved to New York 2003. And she really was one of the few women musicians who actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd love to hang out." And, I think at that time, both of us were really in just really singing mainly with men, our band leaders, our fellow musicians, our side people, our side men, who we hired. Also,
it's changed a lot, hasn't it?
It has.
Since
yes. Then? I mean, I think it's changed.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, this organization is certainly a part of that change.
Yeah. I think we're
changing.
I mean, I think we're helping.
So the idea of mutual mentorship.
Yeah.
Basically, every season you pick a cohort of artists to work together.
Yes.
And it's sort of each one mentoring the other.
Yes.
It's non-hierarchical kind of.
Right. Exactly. So right now, we have a kind of 6-month to 9 month cycle of each. It's 6 months of meetings. So two meetings each month. So we had 12 group meetings as a group.
Wow.
At our very first meeting, we draw names and we pair everyone up. And as long as they haven't worked together before, they become a pair. So so far it's worked great. And what that engenders is just allowing people to collaborate, you know, from outside of their normal circle, you know, and that's one of the many things that we felt was missing, I think, in our community was more cross communication among our overlapping scenes. And so another aspect of, you know, so within the duos, there is, you know, that's where you are really a mutual mentor. You know, that's why we have this wide range of ages, sometimes late teens to mid 70s, you know, I would say that's our biggest range. I think 19 was our youngest and 74 was our eldest. So far through the cohort. So
you're waiting to get to the real old people.
Right. Yeah, I mean.
So it's remind me again, it starts June 15th.
June 16th.
June
is actually
16th.
Our first night. So we have 4 nights, and I'll send you the links so you can include them.
And we'll put that up at our website and on all of our channels.
Yeah. So
it's all at the Greenwich House Music Theater.
Greenwich House Music School. Yep. And, you know, we have such amazing artists as Malika Zara, Michelle Rosewoman, Maya Karen, Leslie Mock, Miriam El Hajli, Monette Sudler, Caroline Davis, Romarna Campbell.
But you were paired with someone this season.
I was paired with Sumi Tanoka. And she's based out in Philly. And I met her through Sada. And so in our first, for our first cohort, it was just kind of, we kind of selected the members. Now there's a very formal open call application and nomination process, and from the previous cohort. So it's all very, you know, we've formalized it a little more to reach further out, you know. So as we become more known, you know, we've got applicants from, you know, Indonesia and UK or Australia, you know, all applying to M3, and it's super exciting. And
you managed to bring them all to New York for this festival?
So we've managed to bring some, you know, from the UK. We have an Romarna Campbell could come from the UK.
Great.
You know, it was tough with the pandemic. There was another artist who was part of our second cohort, Richie Suvright, who couldn't come because of the pandemic and then one of our wonderful second cohort members, Chloe Kim, who's an incredible Australian Korean drummer, percussionist. She couldn't come because of medical reasons. So we couldn't get everybody. But,
right. And also to bring artists to the U.S., there's always visa considerations.
Absolutely.
That can be tricky. And you know, with this Festival of New Trumpet Music that I've been involved with, we found, you know, exactly this. All the things that you're mentioning are the challenges of bringing people here to play in the States. And so when things went all virtual in 2020, certain things were actually easier to have players from Kenya or to have players from Poland or from Japan or from South America. And I would imagine that you had a similar thing. And now that we're having the joy of getting in the same room, now you have these challenges of
exactly.
But Sumi is going to be here, right?
She will be there. Yes, she's coming. I mean, she's close by.
Should we listen to a little bit of your
love
duo
to.
piece with her?
Yay.
So it's part one, and I guess the name of the thing is Mother.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
How beautiful her life is. I look back through the lens of photos of her youth, black and white, as a young woman, smart and sharp, with laughter in her eyes. Last night in the car I cried because I missed her. Missed her small body, her constant care, her positive take on all, even in worry. I wonder, will I be able to sacrifice as much as she did for me? Mother, I lift you, I lift up your photo to my forehead and press your forehead upon mine. How we must have done this when I was a little girl.
So
Yeah.
that's you and Sumi Tsunoka.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I was so lucky to be paired with her. I did not know her work at all. I had been introduced to her, I believe, by Rufus Reed at a Chamber Music America event, I think at the conference. But then a year passed, maybe 2 years passed, and then Sada had taught with her in Philly. And then said, "Oh, we should get Sumi Tanoka in here." And I said, "Oh, I remember that name." And wow, I mean, I wish I had known her earlier because we could have done a lot of more collaborating. But wonderfully, we actually are doing a project together with Asia Society, a big project to premiere next year. So, and that is a theatrical and music work that is called In the Green Room, layering legacies of Black and Asian American women jazz musicians. So we have interviewed and filmed the interview of Toshiko Akiyoshi so far. Also Jenny Lim, who was a mentor of mine in the Bay Area. She's actually San Francisco Poet Laureate was named, but she was a very active in the improv scene in the Bay Area and has been very active. So she, even though she's a poet and writer, she performs with almost, all jazz musicians. So we interviewed her, and we are going to interview Amina Claudine Myers as well. And
Great.
So we're going to create works and text based on those interviews. And it's still in the nascent stages, so I can't say exactly what it will be.
Yeah, but this particular mutual mentorship for musicians, what's the website that people should go to if they want to support or find out more? Where would they go?
Yes, so it's literally Mutual Mentorship for Musicians.org.
Okay.
I should have mentioned that before, so thank you.
Fine.
But yeah, I mean, our partnership could not have been made, without M3. And it's, the idea of mutual mentorship, one of the major, influences or inspirations was Muhal Richard Abrams, the late, great Muhal Richard Abrams. And I'll always remember we had done the Ojai Festival together in 2017. Of course, we're just on the same, like he was playing the day after, I played the day before. And just fortunately, had breakfast with Roscoe and Roscoe Mitchell and Moo Hall, because I had to leave very early, and Roscoe and I had already arranged, let's have breakfast, and then
Love that.
and we walked in the elevator, and he said, I think we'll see Moo Hall because he gets up early, And so lo and behold, he walks into the dining room, and we had this amazing breakfast. And after, I had my suitcase already, and afterwards I said, I just want to say thank you for being such an amazing mentor to so many of us. I was speaking to Moo Hall. I know I'm closer with Roscoe, so I was kind of speaking this to Moo Hall, and he stopped me. We were in front of the elevator, and he said, "Oh, Jen, wait, I really don't like that word, mentor." Or he said, because that implies that someone's higher than the other.
Yeah.
I really like the word exchange, like I want to know about those Taiwanese folk songs that you're always talking about.
Wow,
and I was
that's
really,
great.
yeah.
That's really, really great. I mean, I have the same feeling when people say teacher or
Right.
professor or, because it is an exchange.
Yes.
It's always an exchange.
Exactly.
Do you remember back when I was directing the Banff program in jazz and creative music, and I tried to invite you to get you to come, and I was sort of teaching your training in singing, and you said I can't. You were somewhere else in the world. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But you sent me a long multi-page. Here's what I advise for non-vocalists to, and it was the most generous, wonderful act of sharing.
I must have been in Indonesia. Yeah. 2012,
so but
11, 12.
Something like that. Yeah, same spirit for sure.
Yeah.
You're M3, as I'm going to refer to it because it's shorter.
Absolutely, we call
you
it
guys
M3
too. But you're honoring a particular important artist this year, who's Chicago and sort of came out of the same circles as Moo Hall.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. So it's a perfect segue. Shanta Narula, she's an amazing sitar player and storyteller, and Mbira player. She's really so special. And actually, Tamika Reed had nominated her to be in our second cohort. And
that's great.
And her, she said, well, Shanta really should be more known, but she's not. So I think this would be really great for her. And she's in her 70s and is so generous and so inspiring. Her if you've ever seen one of her storytelling performances, she kind of has two different, she has like storytelling performances, and then she plays sitar also. And so she's currently working on melding the two. But she, her story is so fascinating on how the storytelling began, is because she was performing, and then a lot of the kids that were there in the audience, they were getting unruly and getting, a little, as kids do, and a little restless. And so she started just telling these stories to draw them back in. And that's how it began. The organizer of that performance said, "Oh, I'd love to tell you, or share your work with all the other libraries." And so that's very beautiful. But, I think we instituted this Lifetime Achievement Award to honor the elder women in our community. And of course, she was part of our second cohort. And
it's wonderful to do that when the person is still here with us.
Yes,
and they can share it with you. I think that is so important, and especially people who, don't win all the awards and don't get all the attention and deserve it, and are really important members of our community. So
absolutely,
I think it's just great that M3 is doing that.
Yeah. I mean, she's never performed in New York City before. So
Wow.
on the 21st, when she performs with her ensemble, will be her first New York performance, if you
Wow.
can imagine.
That's great.
So,
That's
so
great.
yeah, we're so excited, and she's so excited.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and her duo partner was Ganavya
Mm.
Doraiswamy, the amazing singer. So, and Shanta was just invited to work with Ganavya's. She had a big project in Houston recently, and Shanta said it was a dream, and yeah, I'm so
Great.
thankful for M3 for making that connection
Great.
between
Yeah.
them. So, yeah,
I want to go back to your record and your music for
yeah,
a bit. I noticed that there's a piece on the album called Lament for Breonna Taylor.
yes,
And I want to play an excerpt, which I wish I could play the whole thing, but this is a podcast where we're talking
yeah.
about music. But I just figured I'd say if there's anything that you want to say about Breonna Taylor other than what you've already said in this piece of music. I'm
Yeah.
opening the floor. It's a
Yeah,
horrible, tragic subject.
absolutely. And I think at that time when we found out about her murder, um, we were still not. I wasn't going to protests myself. I was doing fertility treatment at that time, so I wasn't. I was being very careful of where I was going and where I was going outside. So I was just trying to contribute by donating what I could,
Yeah.
and writing and calling Congress people, and I came upon this article of People Magazine article. A number of articles that I was reading, interviews of her mother, Tamika Palmer, and two articles really, really kind of tore at me, and this People Magazine interview just had Tamika Palmer's words saying, I thought she was going to get COVID, so I just told her, just make sure you wash your hands because that's where the people are going to come first, and then Breonna herself saying, don't worry, don't worry, I'm just doing what I have to do to help and do my part. And,
Yeah.
So it's so unspeakable. And, and other articles were just saying she wanted to have a house and,
Right.
have a family and these basic things, that all humans want, just to live a life. And so that was really the inspiration. And I, at first I wasn't, I kind of wanted, as I would perform this piece, for no one to know that I was singing about Breonna until the middle of the song, when I sing, when I am Breonna Taylor, because I wanted people just to hear it as, I am an emergency medical technician, I could be you, you could be me. And, just trying to see how I could instill that empathy, and because that really is what is missing in so much of our society, right? Is empathy and compassion. And and then of course when I put the title to the song, of course I have to have Breonna Taylor's name there. So
Yeah.
but the intention is, as I'm performing it, that people discover, that any one of you in the audience please consider yourself, you know, or please put yourself in this woman's shoes and life. I don't know. It's hard to talk about.
Empathy is a very good word here that you used. And I think it's a really powerful piece. And so thank you for making it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I said to her, honey, listen to mama. You are in the army, so you need to be careful. Make sure you wash your hands, 'cause that's where the people are gonna come first. Mama, I'm gonna be okay. I've got to do what I've got to do to help and do my part. I'm an emergency medical technician. I save lives.
Wow. Thank you for making that. That is a really powerful statement and a very difficult topic. And so much a part of the theme of the album, Ritual for the Losses. So I wanted to go back to talking a little bit about your experiences as a musician. And it was brought to my attention that there's a quite charming video of a performance of you at age 13 with the Peoria Symphony Orchestra playing Tchaikovsky.
Tchaikovsky.
It's a little bit different than what we just heard, but
Right.
I'm sure an important part of your background, having come up kind of, I guess, a classically trained pianist and violinist and dancer.
Yes, all of those things. And then later opera and singing.
And you went to Stanford, but since that time, it seems like, a big important theme for you is traveling to different parts of the world and just learning through immersion and learning new traditions and instruments and languages.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that upbringing was such an idyllic time. I am amazed that I had all that time to practice, like 6 hours a day, learn all that repertoire. But
you mean as a child?
Yeah. And I watched that video and I actually make fun of myself a bit in the theatrical version of Zero Grasses, where it's like, who is that? Who's that girl?
Well, but would you say, I mean, it's clearly another immersion that you had into this music that was somehow in the ethers around you.
That's
and
right.
that you then deeply immersed yourself in.
Yeah.
And so, maybe that was step one, and maybe even learning that was the path to learning how to learn all the other things that you've since taken
Absolutely.
on.
Yeah, because Stanford was, I feel like I squandered my time a bit there because I did declare music as a major, and my parents were like, "Why didn't you major in like something useful, like computer science
doctor,
or something?"
lawyer?
I think they already
surgeon.
knew I wasn't going to go into that that was supposed to be my brother's realm, which he turned out to fall in love with volleyball and is a volleyball coach now.
Oh wow!
That's
so great.
Yeah, so
the American experience.
Yeah, but so one interesting thing that then I really explore in Zero Grasses in the theatrical version,
Yeah.
is that I had the diary entries of when I was doing those concerts with the symphony orchestra. And it's me just kind of freaking out, but by writing, like I actually, in the little
Wow.
dressing room, I actually wrote
Wow.
my,
Wow.
my feelings when I was
Wow.
waiting backstage. And all of it is, you would really laugh. All of it is like, will the audience like me? Will I get a standing ovation? It's all of, this very really needing approval, like trying to be the prettiest, most perfect little girl. And, and, just really obsessed with perfection and like pleasing my teacher or pleasing, uh, the conductor. And so I really have a kind of critical eye on that as the theatrical piece moves through, because I grow up and I meet some much older jazz musicians, male jazz musicians, and kind of get into the confusing time of early 20s, moving to New York, and um, having distasteful things said to me, and being objectified, and that being a really confusing time, and not having women, or maybe I was too scared to seek out women to guide me, and so it's all tied together. That's why M3 is so important, but yeah, I mean, just everything in that show, I can see this. And what is missing from Zero Grasses, though, is my time abroad. I kind of skipped that whole part because I feel in past pieces I've delved into.
I was going to say that in fairness, it's not like it's not like you've really avoided that in your all your work.
I feel like so I've been very lucky to kind of find this way of expressing myself in terms of like adding theater and music and dance. So in 2014, when I was just coming back from Indonesia, is when I first attempted this kind of integration of all my passions and abilities, and and created Solo Writes Seven Breaths, which was directed by Gary Nugroho, who is this amazing director from Indonesia. And then that, I feel like, was a full expression. Like I was performing songs that I'd learned from Korea, Indonesia, and East Timor, and then writing new music inspired by it. And then my next piece, Nine Doors, which was a solo version of Song of Silver Geese, continued that exploration. So it was that one was in like 8 languages. Like, I had traditional biwa music as well as my own biwa songs in English. And so I feel like I definitely have kind of explored that. And of course there's yet more, but with Zero Grasses, it was so personal. Most of it is in English. It's just kind of this coming of age story of a, Taiwanese, Timorese American girl in America. And so, yeah, I think that this one definitely, it's absent of the direct reference to my research, but if you hear the music and my singing, of course, Javanese singing and Korean, it's all in there. It's just not, it's not directly kind of referenced, if that makes sense.
I know what you're saying, but I feel like you really, it's also, like you said, it's also wrapped together that it's personal. It's, it's you. It's all of the things, all of the different things, which is a global story. And part of being an American also is encountering all those things and having a brother who's a volleyball coach and so I hear it all in there at the same time. The thing that I Well, first of all, I've been making so many remote recordings with people because of
Right.
COVID.
Yeah.
And you all, this was made a little bit before, so you're all in the
Yes.
studio together. And there's this one particular piece called Body of Tears, where you're singing and playing the piano at the same time.
Yep.
And the parts are very independent. And at first, when I first heard it, I thought, oh, she must have overdubbed the vocals. It's not possible that she. And I emailed you to ask. And
Right.
no.
Yeah, it's all there. I sang everything.
It's
Played,
just
sang it.
amazing.
Everything.
And like you're saying, it does. To me, that's what exemplifies bringing together all of these different threads and interests and lived experience
Right.
that we hear, that I think makes it great, if you'll accept the compliment.
Thank you. I accept humbly.
Let's hear a little bit of this one, Body of Tears.
May 20th, last year, a restaurant, a table, I see her watching fish and fresh greens on her plate and around its rim, her tears in an arc of raindrops. He asks her, should we leave? She says, God, no, I'm so hungry, we cannot leave now. God knows I'm empty, nourish me somehow.
Jen, that's just an amazing performance. And,
Thank you.
And you're also an incredible band leader. And you've had this band for a good number of years now, pretty consistent personnel. And not to take anything away from your own playing and writing and organizing, but they're all equally
They're
fantastic
amazing.
on this. It's Ambrose Akinmusiri
Yes.
on trumpet and Dan Weiss, of course, on drums, just incredible. Thomas Morgan
Yeah.
and Matt Maneri,
Yes.
I guess viola.
Yeah. Yep. He only played viola, not violin on this record.
And,
Yeah.
to have that band together, the band is called Jade Tongue. I hope that you're all able to travel and tour.
Soon.
Yeah. It's a band that deserves to be out playing because, like we were saying before, it's a real, a real special and unique expression of your voice as an artist, as a human, as a composer, as a band leader.
Yeah.
When I heard a few of these pieces that I hadn't heard before, I'm a big fan of Pi recordings, and this is on Pi. I love, as a composer, as an improviser, as a band leader, I'm always curious, how did the composer transmit this idea to the players, and how did they pick it up, and how did they know what to do? Because it's clearly very improvisational, and yet it's also very thought out as to what the texture is moment to moment, and everybody contributes really interestingly and powerfully to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've played with, especially Danny and Thomas. We were kind of like the core, like they were my first two. Gosh, it was at the Deer 55 bar.
Wow.
Which is so sadly closed.
Going,
But that was my first gig with them. And wow, that was when Quiva was still with us. And the music I was writing for them then was very different. It was very like kind of intellectual and definitely the opposite of very personal. It was very like many, how do I say, polyrhythmic. Yeah, it was just very different. And so the way I feel like Indonesia, my time, that long stretch when I was, Indonesia, Korea, East Timor, Vietnam, like I was just traveling so much and out there, I didn't have a return ticket at that time, so that really changed my concept. It really changed the way I wanted to relate to the other musicians. Like I just didn't want to have, I loved structure. I loved things interlocking in a very specific way. But then, in Indonesia, in Javanese gamelan, for instance, there's so much flexibility, and then there's so many cues that like, oh, this won't change until the singer sings this word, or this or hits that note, and then the drum will give a cue, and then the gong player will land his gong at the end of that drum. So it's like all this interlinking and interlocking, and but just very kind of determined by everyone else and not me. So yeah, and then the subject matter, like I realized I have a lot of stories to tell, and a lot of, like, as you said, lived experience that I think when I was kind of in my New York bubble, here I wasn't really, seeing the world and meeting all these people from all these different walks of life, until I really took those first trips to Taiwan and Cuba, and then to China and East Timor, and then, discovering my family in all these places. That really changed the way. So then I became very, well, here's the melody. Here's like two notes, dyads of my moon lute, because I wrote, say I wrote a song on my moon lute, and that's it. That's all the information I'm giving you. And then, of course, I trust Danny and Thomas and Ambrose and Matt so much that they can kind of make anything into gold, And so actually Ambrose did most of this record from his home, like, and just overdubbed a lot of, I would say a lot of the songs. I have to look at the titles, but so that's amazing that Ambrose did that. So I just love playing with them. Again, I feel like as the years have gone by, I've given them less and less information. And
that's good.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Yeah. And they just have their own, the musicians, and probably people listening know who they are, but I just feel like they're kind of revolutionary and the innovators of their instruments, and the great improvisers of our time.
Nice.
So yeah, I've been really lucky to learn from them. And
that thing that you said about the interlocking parts is really interesting, because, I hear that here, but it's also, as you described it in Javanese music, it's really rich. And then I also knew that for a time you played with Steve Coleman.
Right.
And so his music has a lot of that kind of element. And I just wonder, as you add other instruments, as you play the moon lute and keep working on the biwa, and you're describing this sense of opening into freedom.
Right.
And yet all of that interlocking idea motif is just now in the background of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Somehow.
I think it's like one of the tools. It's like, of course you're a composer. It's like you have so many tools of like, well, if I want to express this thing, well, let me reach in and get this tool, because that better serves that, that message or that thing I want to say. And
or let me make a new tool
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then once you've made the new tool, you realize that it's taking you to this place that's
Yeah.
still you, which
Yes.
is,
Yes.
for the longest time, I was trying to write music that wasn't me or about me. And I
Right.
think I only got deeper into me, and
Yeah.
people in my bands would always, I'd bring in a new book and say, okay, this time it's different. You go,
Yeah.
okay, sounds just like Dave Douglas.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Ay, ay, ay. So now I don't really worry about it anymore.
Yeah. It's hopeless to try to worry about it. But yeah, I mean, I love pushing myself too to, if I know something works, I like think of ways to
Yeah.
disrupt
Yeah.
that. Like, oh, let me try
Right.
something that's really scary for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. And how could I get to this in a way that I've never gotten there before?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know
So
what
I
you
try.
mean. That's so cool. That's great.
Yeah.
I want to, in the podcast extra, now I'm teasing for people who are not subscribers to Greenleaf Music, but we're going to do, you sent me this incredible clip of a trailer from a movie,
Yes.
Opera Java,
Yes.
and we're going to talk about that in the extra. But what you just said about the Indonesian music is really sort of a powerful way to
Yeah.
think about all of these interactions and the way that we, I guess, not only in New York, but with New York sort of as a global center for improvisers.
Hmm.
Everybody seems to at least come here for a time.
Yeah. And New York being such a resourceful, I first started playing gamelan at the consulate, of course, the Indonesian
Wow.
consulate here, because they have a working gamelan group. And I haven't been to a practice in a very long time, but everyone's still family there to me. And
Yeah.
I just started, before the pandemic, I was gigging so much I couldn't make they had
Yeah.
weekly practices,
Wow.
I think,
Yeah.
was it Fridays, Wednesdays and Fridays, and a real master named Pat Harjito, who
Mm-hmm.
teaches up at Wesleyan. He kind of would lead the group,
Nice.
and a bunch of other amazing American gamelan players who keep the group going, and Stebinger being one, and John Ray. And, I met a lot of them out in Java. And then luckily, can still play with them in New York. But so, yeah, I mean, New York is amazing for that, for
Yeah.
that reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's yeah, New York is amazing for everything, like any music or culture or anything or food.
Yeah.
You can find super, super high
Yes.
examples of it in New
Authentic.
York. And
Yeah.
it's what makes us all who we are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're enriched by having your music. I want to wrap this up, but mention again the M3 concerts. So it's June 16th to the 21st at Greenwich House.
Yes. 22nd is our gala.
Oh, sorry.
But
Excuse
yes,
me.
the live concerts
I didn't
are
have
only.
it written down, Jen. I'm sorry. I
I know.
apologize. I tried to improvise there.
No, it's perfect because the live concerts are only June 16th, 17th, 18th, and 21st. And then our
Okay.
gala, which is celebrating Shanta, and our fourth cohort, which is our current cohort, their video music premieres. So they each are commissioned by us to create 10-minute video and music pieces. So
Great.
they will be screened. It's
Yeah.
like a film screening. They'll be
Wonderful.
screened the night of the gala as well on June 22nd. So
Great.
yeah.
Great. Congratulations. It's so great to talk to
Thank
you and hear
you.
about all this music and life. I want to go out with the final piece on your record, which is called Life as You Envision. And thank you so much for making the time. And stick around because we are going to have that conversation about Javanese music and the film. And it's just amazing. And if you haven't seen it, people just go to YouTube and type Opera Jawa. It's Jawa.
Yes.
And there's the trailer and there's a few different clips from this
Yes.
incredible contemporary film.
Yep.
So
Yay.
we'll talk to you about it on the other side. But for now, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I
Thank
really
you so
appreciate
much,
it.
Dave. This has been really a pleasure.
another, but your worth must come from within you. We'll move on to all things that free you, being who you truly are without one compromise, not even for love I have loved.
Thanks for listening to A Noise from the Deep. This is Dave Douglas signing off. Please come join us and subscribe. Get the extras, get the entire catalog, greenleafmusic.com. Thanks.